We showed you the hundreds of Canadian busybodies who flew to the Paris Global Warming Conference. Well, tonight we show you their bill. It's February 1st, and you're watching The Ezra Levant Show.
Why should others go to jail when you're the biggest carbon consumer I know?
There's 8,500 customers here, and you won't give them an answer.
You come here once a year with a sign, and you feel morally superior.
The only thing I have to say to the government about why I publish it is because it's my bloody right to do so.
Hey, remember 2 months ago when all the fancy people jetted to the big United Nations global warming meeting in Paris? Tens of thousands of people. Canada had one of the biggest delegations in the world, actually. 383 very important people attended. That was more than Australia, more than the United Kingdom, more than the United States combined. Remember going through that list to look at all these important people? Almost none of them were scientists or economists. Almost all of them were in the political spin business, including dozens of press secretaries, communications directors, and even 4 full-time photographers. That's what this was about, preening for the cameras. Even if you believe in the theory of man-made global warming, very few of the 383 Canadians on the trip had any business being there. The lone Green Party MLA from New Brunswick, really? 9 very important politicians and bureaucrats from Nunavut? Why? It was a country-to-country treaty negotiation at the United Nations. Why did we have mayors there? And mayors' assistants? And assistants to those assistants? Well, duh, free trip to Paris. It was super gross and all paid for by you and me. So how much did it cost? Well, we at The Rebel submitted an access to information request with the various government departments that went. And we've received the first reply back from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's Stéphane Dion's department. And the numbers are shocking. So just to be clear, this is only for Stéphane Dion's people. According to the UN list published right before the conference, Dion had 10 departmental staff, and then there were 7 people from our embassy in Paris. That's a hell of an entourage, like some Saudi sheik or something. But that's just a sliver of a fraction of Canada's total. But still, get a load of this. Stéphane Dion's department spent $49,719 on travel. How do you do that? Again, according to the UN, Dion had 17 people going, but 7 were already stationed in Paris. So just 10 came in from Canada. That's $4,972 per person, including a little cash gift to each of them called a per diem. But I just went to Expedia and I typed in a flight from Ottawa to Paris in November, and you can get a round trip with taxes for about $700. But you see, that's for the little people. These were very big, very important people. So 49 grand on flights. But look at this, $121,104 on accommodations. I mean, do you think these people were just going to stay at the Best Western or something, or at Airbnb? 121 grand. And remember, this was a conference on global warming to tell you and me to stop living so large. Again, our 7 Paris diplomats already have a home in Paris, so divide this hotel bill by 10 Canadians in the delegation, and that's a cool $12,110 each. Oh, and that's on top of the per diem they all got paid also. $12,000 a head for hotel rooms. Hey guys, just rent the hotel room. Don't buy it, okay? That was just a sleep-in though. See, they also rented meeting rooms. $40,127 worth. Didn't the UN provide plenty of meeting rooms? Wasn't the whole thing a conference meeting in rooms? How do you spend 40 grand on rooms to meet him? And why wouldn't you just meet at our huge, luxurious embassy if you needed more meeting rooms? Oh, let me guess. Because Justin Trudeau says budgets balance themselves, am I right? Oh my God. But here's my favorite. These are the folks who hate cars, hate fossil fuels, hate driving. And Paris is a very walkable city. It's just gorgeous. It's amazing. But No, you don't understand. These people are too important to walk, too many important meetings to go to in important meeting rooms. So they spent, get this, $65,903 on rental cars. What, for 17 people? Again, 7 of whom already live there. So how do you do that for the 10 who came from Canada? That's $6,590 each. What, were they renting Ferraris? Well, you couldn't catch a cab or an Uber, maybe even share a ride, maybe walk in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Add it up, and these little piggies blew through $282,767 in one conference. And that was just Stefan Dion and his crew. For the 17 of them, that's $16,633 per person, including the 7 who already live in Paris. It takes the average Canadian how many months to earn that kind of money after tax? But again, these weren't the little people in Paris. These were very important people, burning very important jet fuel and renting very important gas guzzlers. I haven't yet included the environment minister or the prime minister or the premiers who went or the mayors. We haven't got their expense reports yet. This is just the first access to information request of a dozen. And we're already at more than $250,000, half of which was on cars and jets. You want to know how I know that global warming is just a scam? Because the people who keep telling us that we're all going to die if we don't change the way we live and that we got to use less fuel and live smaller, yeah, those people, when they think we're not looking, they're pigging out, racking up air miles and roaring around Paris in high style. Yeah, forgive me if I pay a little less attention to what they say and a little more attention to what they do. And Stefan Dion's little team blew through $250,000 just so he could have a few selfies. Stay with us. More after these words.
I love Alberta. I've lived here my whole life and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of our free market, pro-business, low-tax, do-it-yourself attitude. And now, I'm watching my province get destroyed. We've all had hints of the NDP's radical views in the past, but no one actually thought they'd ever run this province. Not even them. And now they are. And the worst is yet to come. I give my sad forecast for Alberta in my new ebook, The Destroyers, Rachel Notley and the NDP's War on Alberta. Go to thedestroyers.ca to sign up for your free copy today.
But we're going to win Pennsylvania. We're going to win Virginia. We're going to win Michigan. I'm always talking about the car business being stripped out of Michigan. And the poll numbers in Michigan are incredible. We're going to win Ohio. They did a poll. I like John Kasich very much, but the problem is they did a poll in Ohio, and I'm beating him by a lot, and he's the existing, he's the serving governor. We're going to win Florida. I'm at 48% against 16 people.
That's Donald J. Trump talking about his poll results. Part of his appeal is that he's a winner, and he looks like a winner and sounds like a winner, and the polls seem to confirm that he's a winner. But right now, literally as we speak, across Iowa, in more than 1,500 little places, they are caucusing. That's what they call these little meetups, some of them even in private homes, where little gaggles of Republicans get together and have a little mini conference and choose their nominee for their state. It's not going in, marking an X on a ballot and getting out. So it's tough to poll in advance because you never know what that last minute persuasion, it's like a jury conferring with each other. Things may change at the last moment. Here, take a look at the last Quinnipiac poll, though. It does show Trump with a significant lead, pushing down Ted Cruz substantially. It's a 7-point lead, but I say again, who knows what will happen. But I want to bring in my friend Gavin McInnes now via Skype from New York, because I want to put aside the details of the caucus and I want to talk about the Trump phenomenon, which I think, Gavin, is a total repudiation of Obama and his domestic socialism. Here we have a turbo-capitalist, and his foreign affairs submission. Here we have a guy who talks about building walls, making others pay for it, crushing ISIS, and winning against China, OPEC. I mean, it couldn't be more opposite what Obama is saying, and it's actually appealing to a lot of Democrats too.
Yeah. Well, what's happened here is we had a great fighter in Cruz. We had a Lennox Lewis who was a smart fighter and tactical and took his time. And then we saw what we're up against, which is this PC liberal culture that is really all about sabotaging America. That's really what the left has been doing for the past 7 years, the mainstream media and the media in Canada with Justin Trudeau. It's not just telling other people what to do and bullying conservatives and blue collars. It's really about destroying Western tradition. And so we said, you know what, Lennox Lewis, you're a great fighter, but we need a Mike Tyson. And Trump is a beast. He is going to go in there and slap Putin in the face. He's not going to let Russia shoot down a plane. He's not going to let China walk all over him. He's going to stand up, and there'll be no more of this bowing. Yeah. Trump will keep his back straight.
You're exactly right. I regard myself as a fairly principled conservative. Others may disagree, but I try and think about the philosophy and apply it starting from first principles. And I will be the first to acknowledge that Donald Trump is not that way. There's some gorgeous attack ads against him recently put out by super PACs showing him making statements in the 80s and 90s and even more recently that are pro-liberal, pro-Clinton, very left-wing. That worries me as a conservative. Even some of his celebrity-style comments, I was looking at a video of him on the Howard Stern show ranking some of his ex-girlfriend models, and I cringed. But you know what? Donald Trump, despite his personal flaws and his ideological flaws, as you say, is the gorilla big enough to beat the real enemy, which is the media political establishment that Ted Cruz, while a superior ideologue, will get ground up by, just the same way Mitt Romney got ground up by him, the same way John McCain and Sarah Palin got ground up by him. I'm for Trump because he is the only one big enough to beat the media, and I love the fact that he never blinks. Even if he's wrong, he never blinks. I'll take him over an ideologue. What do you say, Gavin?
That's how bad things are. We need someone like this. He's a savage. He's a monster. And that's what the culture wars have come to. I mean, you and I come at this from different angles. You're more like a Buckley conservative. I'm a beast. I'm a punk rocker. I'm only here because Islam and immigration and there's this true sexism and homophobia taking over our country and telling us that we're evil losers. And that made me a conservative because these are the only ones standing up to the bullies, standing up to the fascist Islamists and the open borders that is killing the blue collars. So I'm here more from a Trump angle, and it's what we need. Look, I look forward to the day that you and I can argue. But right now, we have to be allied together against this huge problem, which is, as Pat Buchanan called it, the death of the West.
You're so right. I mean, Donald Trump says he's going to put tariffs on imports from China. I think that's bad policy. He's talked about a universal health care system. That's bad policy. But to me, those are trivial details. Those are rounding errors when placed next to the question of our age, which is mass Muslim migration in a stealth jihad called the Hijra that we see in Europe. That is far more worrying to me than a guy who might get his economics wrong. And frankly, building that wall on the south, if I was a low-income American, especially blue-collar white or a black American on the lower income, that would appeal to me very much. Who do you think is driving down wages and driving up rent? Donald Trump is a rejection of every establishment, Republican and Democrat and media and UN, everything. And you know what? In a way, he's the same emanation as Bernie Sanders. Both of them are saying everything's so wrecked. Both of them are a repudiation of Obama. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. And he's a rejection of shame. And there's something about the West. We are very special. We've invented just about everything. You look at the Industrial Revolution, we changed the world, and instead of pride, we have shame. And if you want to take a very hyperbolic example, I've become obsessed with that video you showed of Angela Merkel sneering at the German flag.
Yeah.
Let's take that, put that in a petri dish, okay? This is a country that's ashamed of their flag, think of themselves as disgusting, horrible people who have done terrible things. It's still drenched in guilt from World War II. And they bring in all these rape refugees, say it's going to be fine. What happens is exactly what we said would happen, raping en masse, and they still are beating themselves up. We've got men in skirts prancing around saying, stop raping, women holding signs that say nice sex. Yeah, that's going to help things. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not saying it's going to happen here tomorrow, but it's the same seeds planted here in the West, in America and in Canada. I mean, you got kids sent home from school because they have an American flag shirt on May Day. That is the beginning of the Merkel with the sneering flag, with the rape refugees. It's not just a little thing, political correctness and this war on free speech. It's not just a funny little trait. It is really step one of the lemmings going off the cliff.
I heard a definition, I think it was by Steve Saylor, that political correctness is the effort to not notice things.
Yeah, notice patterns. It's the effort to ignore patterns. And it's all about power with these PC people with the left. Well, I mean, even Obamacare is about power. It's about signing people up because ultimately the left and liberals think that they're smarter than you. And that is distinctly un-American. One thing that's unique about America here, as Steinbeck put it, he said, the poor see themselves as temporarily embarrassed millionaires. In Britain, they're like, well, you want to be working class. They got their blue-collar teams, they're blue-collar for life. Here in America, that's a temporary thing. Well,
and that's one of the things that struck me in his announcement. Donald Trump boasted. He said, I'm not just rich, I'm incredibly rich. I'm richer than you think. Let me prove, like Mitt Romney would say, oh, I'm so sorry I made this money. Please don't beat me over the head with it. Trump said, I'm the best billionaire ever. Everything is superlative. And the entire political class says, oh, no, you can't be that way. And the very fact that he defies that, oh, you can't take on Fox. I like Fox. But that was brilliant. That was showing he will back down to no one. And by the way, I think you're going to get a Reagan effect where 10, 20% of Democrats are going to come over and say, you know what? This guy's his own man. He's not a, cookie cutter Fox News Republican. And you're going to see people who never regarded themselves as political at all just say, I like the cut of his jib. I watched him on The Apprentice. He seems smart. He's got a billionaire. He's smarter than me. He wants to win again. When was the last time we heard that? I love that those two black women who introduce him at all his campaign stops with such passion and humor. He will reach out to people that Republicans keep saying they have to reach out to, but they don't have a clue of how to do it. I'm for Trump, not because he's a Republican, conservative, but because he is the only thing strong enough to smash this muzzle we've got on. Last word to you, Gavin.
Well, don't forget Republicans. We got to get dads off the couch and into the voting booth. I mean, one of the reasons Obama won is because dads just said, screw it, the whole system is toast, I give up. When we get dads off the couch, they can win. If we had the same voting demographics that we had in Reagan's time during this last election, then Obama would have lost. We'd have Romney in. Yeah, we need to get everyone off the couch, and that's what Trump does because he's exciting. And he tells it like it is. Like when Norman Lear made Archie Bunker, Meathead was supposed to be the hero and Archie Bunker was the loser because Norman Lear is totally out of touch with America. Archie Bunker ended up being the star of the show because he's honest, a hardworking guy that tells it like it is. That's what America loves, and that's who Trump is.
You're exactly right. We got to leave it there, Gavin. After the break, I'm going to talk to Lorrie Goldstein about Justin Trudeau, who is the anti-Trump, the opposite of Trump. Where Trump is strong, Trudeau is weak. Where Trump is clear, Trudeau is vague and nuanced. Where Trump is a billionaire, a serial entrepreneur, capitalist, risk taker. Trudeau is a trust fund kid who decided to get his first job as prime minister a few years ago. Where Trump is strong on foreign affairs, Trudeau is an appeaser. We couldn't be more opposite. For Canada's sake, we need America to be led by Trump. But after these words, we'll have Lorrie talking about Justin Trudeau and his bizarre Holocaust Memorial Day statement. That's after these short words.
Looking for the perfect gift? Did you know TheRebel.media has a store? Make a statement with a t-shirt. Have your morning coffee in a Fearless Travel coffee mug. There's even an Ezra Levant bobblehead. It's a one-stop shop for the perfect gift. And don't forget to pick up something for yourself. Go to TheRebel.media/store to find out more.
Ontario residents are being hosed on electricity prices. The latest Auditor General's report says we've been overcharged by $37 billion over the last several years. That works out to nearly $2,800 for every man, woman, and child. Why? Mismanagement and bad policy choices from the Ontario Liberals. It's going to cost us billions more in coming years. Energy Minister Bob Chiarelli won't take responsibility. He's lashing out. It's time for Bob to go. If you agree, go to firebob.ca. That's firebob.ca and make your voice heard.
Welcome back to the show. Well, last week it was International Holocaust Memorial Day, which is one of those days where politicians issue symbolic statements. But Justin Trudeau's statement was unique in that it managed not to mention Jews. Here, let me read the statement for you and show you what I mean. Justin Trudeau said, "On this day, we pay tribute to the memory of the millions of victims murdered during the Holocaust. We honor those who survived atrocities at the hands of the Nazi regime and welcome their courageous stories of hope and perseverance. The Holocaust is a stark reminder of the dangers and risks of allowing hate, prejudice, and discrimination to spread unchallenged. It also reminds us that silence must never be an option when humanity is threatened." And finally, as we pause to educate ourselves and our families on the bitter lessons of the Holocaust, we also strengthen our resolve to work with domestic and international partners to continue defending human rights and condemning intolerance. That's pretty incredible to make that entire statement without mentioning the word Jew or Jewish or anti-Semitism. And joining us now in studio to talk about this is my friend and the National Sun media columnist, Lorrie Goldstein. Great to see you. You wrote about this the other day, Lorrie. What do you think?
What the Prime Minister's office told me was that it was an honest mistake. Now, what that meant and what that means, I would have thought, well, if it's an honest mistake, wouldn't you then publicly correct it? But they didn't do that. They sent out a subsequent, when the Prime Minister tweeted on it, he had a specific thing on the tweet that said we have to fight anti-Semitism. There was a subsequent statement by Dion, the Foreign Affairs Minister, which did specifically mention Jews and others dying in the Holocaust. And on the Liberal Party website, in his role as the head of the Liberal Party of Canada, Trudeau later issued a statement that said, that mentioned Jews and others. To me, it's early days, and I don't think you judge any administration on one thing. But how do you talk about the Holocaust without pointing out that, and look, let's be clear, many other people other than Jews died in the Holocaust, millions of other people. The master race concept excluded a lot of humanity. So in no way am I suggesting those people should be forgotten.
But it would be like talking about the Ukrainian Holodomor, the planned starvation of millions of Ukrainians planned by Joseph Stalin, without mentioning the word Ukrainians. Or, how can you, that was a long statement. That took effort not to mention Jews.
The analogy I used when I was discussing it on Twitter was talking about slavery without blacks. Exactly. As it applies to the Jewish people, the point is that, well, many people were exterminated. Russian POWs, Poles, Slavs, Gypsies, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, the disabled. Atrocious wrongdoing. The only group that was targeted for extinction under the final solution were the Jews. And so to me, it's important to always remember that, and to remember the Holocaust, both, as I wrote in my column, as a general admonition to racism and bigotry and the evil that humanity men do to men. That's one. The other is a specific reference, as I believe one of the writers from the Jewish magazine Tablet said, to the nature of anti-Semitism, which I think is a confusing term, and I prefer the much clearer, simpler term, Jew hatred.
Yeah, and which is on the rise. I mean, we hear a lot from Justin Trudeau about Islamophobia, but and we even hear some comparisons to today's Syrian migrants with Jewish migrants, but there is no final solution. There is no madman in the world trying to exterminate every Muslim. There are no concentration camps. There are Muslims being killed by fellow Muslims. And so we have a prime minister obsessed with finding Islamophobia, but it's actually anti-Semitism that's on the rise, Jew killing that's on the rise. And that's why this tweak to me, Lorrie. I mean, I think it's important that Jews not overuse the word anti-Semitism.
Absolutely.
It's like a knife that you want to stay sharp for when you really need to use it. You don't want to cut everything, so you're anti-Semitic. We don't want to use it just as an insult. It has to have meaning. But I think a lot of Jews are nervous about Trudeau because he's made a public statement that he intends to change the tone towards Israel. He's made appointments, Omar al-Jabra, to his Parliamentary Secretary of Foreign Affairs. Stéphane Dion, his foreign minister, made a bizarre statement about terrorism in Israel that did not condemn it or name it.
Well, it was sort of like, it was the old moral equivalency between the person who attacks and the person who defends themselves. And that's...
Well, and that's the context here. I mean, look, if Justin Trudeau was a great friend of Israel with a proven track record and a great friend of the Jews, I wouldn't care about a symbolic statement on a website. But to me, it's sort of the proof of what's above the water of the iceberg, of the 6/7 that's below the water.
Well, no, I guess we'll see as it plays out over time. But I agree with you. Look, the reality is, in terms of if you're a Jew around the world or in Canada who cares about the fate of Israel, frankly, in my lifetime, the strongest governments supporting Israel have been conservative, under Stephen Harper, and before that, under Brian Mulroney. Whatever else you think of these individuals, they were firm allies of Israel.
And same in the States, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon.
Yep. And so it's because of you said, the word that's always used, I find, is that the policy is now supposed to be nuanced, that the Harper policy, or perhaps the Mulroney policy, wasn't nuanced. And to me, nuanced is a code word, it's a dog whistle, because basically it means anti-Israel. Nuanced policy, which I think is probably the predominant view in foreign affairs, where the bureaucrats stay no matter who comes and goes. It seems to me over the years, watching them, that I'm not going to say they're anti-Israel, but they certainly are not the first people you would want to be in a foxhole with if Israel was attacked.
You know, and look, I say again, a symbolic statement on a website, at the end of the day, I don't really care. What I care about more is Justin Trudeau saying he's going to reestablish relations with Iran, even though it is still conducting itself abusively domestically, and still its military declared just this weekend that it plans to destroy Israel, that it will withdraw Canadian troops from the fight against the Islamic State. It's in that context that this is just the aha moment to me, Lorrie. Last word to you. Do you think that Trudeau made a mistake, or do you think this is who he is?
The PMO said to me it was a mistake.
That's different than him saying it was a mistake.
Of course. I believe in, as I said in my column, I take them at their word. Rona Ambrose, the Conservative leader, Tom Mulcair, the NDP leader, Barack Obama, the President of the United States, Stephen Harper, in his statement on the same issue a year ago, all logically mentioned, along with other victims, Jews. So that raises questions for me. I don't understand. I guess I don't understand their explanation. Yes. Having said that, I'm very reticent to use terms like anti-Semitic so I'm not there yet. But I have a concern. It's almost like how many, the Chinese say like water dripping on a stone eventually wears away the stone. Yeah. There's been a number of drips already. Yeah. And so I want to see if there's a pattern. I want to see if it's replicated. The irony, Stéphane Dion, when they talked about the lifting of sanctions, one of the things they said, Canada will be vigilant because Iran is an enemy of Israel. And yet, Canada is going to sanctions. And a few days after that statement, the head of Iran called for the destruction of Israel again. Yeah. So I want to see, I want to wait, I don't want to overstate, but I do have some concerns and I will be watching. Yeah.
So will be Lord Goldstein. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Folks, stay with us after the break. Your viewer feedback. I look forward to reading your letters right after these words.
So open-minded that the brains have fallen out.
What's the point that you're making?
The point that I'm making is that if you're going to propose a massive overhaul to the way the economy is developed in terms of carbon tax, cap and trade, other forms like that, it helps to have some science that is in fact settled.
We've heard you loud and clear. You can't get enough Canadian conservative news and opinion. Why not check out our blog? It's all your favorite conservative bloggers together on a page called The Megaphone. Go to TheRebel.media/TheMegaphone or click on the Megaphone menu from our main page to check it out.
Hey, welcome back to the show. My favorite part is viewer feedback. I don't know about this letter. Kim writes about my response to Sophie Gregoire Trudeau's humorous infomercial about these humorous tablets that can flavor menstrual blood. I'm sorry to even say that. Kim writes, I think using gross is only appropriate if you are under 15 and female. Love your work, keep it up. Hi, Kim. Look, the word gross does feel childish to say, but I don't think I have a lack of fancy words in me. It's just that gross seemed like the best word to describe what Trudeau was saying and doing and how she was talking about it. She herself was juvenile and gross. By the way, that video has gone viral, our discussion of it, about 80,000 views so far, but the mainstream media has put a total blackout on it, not even mentioning it, just pretending it doesn't exist. I mean, do you think they would do that if it were a conservative in that video? Yeah, me neither. John from the University of New Brunswick writes, I am a student and show interest in journalism. What I am wondering is how one gets into the press gallery that asks the questions in those press conferences that the cabinet ministers and chiefs of staff hold every now and again. Does one need to be a journalist? If so, how does one register for these conferences? Hi, John. Of course, we live in a free country, so anyone can ask a politician a question. We don't believe in permits or licenses for journalists. Now, there are some specific places, though, where access to do that journalism is restricted, sometimes for reasons of space, sometimes for security. In the case of Parliament Hill, there are some space and security concerns, but also access is limited there by the media party, the cartel of existing journalists who, for historical reasons and quirks, they have had the power to shut out rival journalists granted to them by Parliament. So you actually have to fill out their application form, which I am showing you here. This is actually the Parliamentary Press Gallery's application form. You have to prove you work for, quote, a major news organization, or if you're a freelancer, you have to have letters of reference from your clients. It's laughable. I mean, they don't even mention the internet at all. It's like they're still living in the 1990s. Obviously, they haven't tried to keep us out. Brian Lilly has access to the Hill all the time, but other reporters have not been so lucky. So yeah, when I call it the media party, they sometimes really do have power and they use it to exclude their rivals. They would probably keep you out, John. Universal tweets, Ezra, give me a break. Rebel Media isn't a real media outfit. You're a special interest group playing dress up. Huh. Well, look, this phrase special interest group, in my mind, is usually used for people who lobby, especially lobbying for some sort of handout. We don't do that. We report the news and we give our opinions on it. Those opinions happen to fit with millions of Canadians, by the way. Not everyone, but we're an antidote to the CBC and Toronto Star view. It is true that occasionally we take activist steps too, like signing petitions and fighting political campaigns like our Stop the Carbon Tax campaign in Alberta, or our Refugee Pause campaign nationally, or our new one in Quebec, cutthemoff.ca. But again, how is that really any different from the campaigning the CBC does all the time, except that we don't use anybody's taxpayer dollars to fund it? Hey, that's our show for today. Tune in tomorrow. I get the feeling we're going to have some news you won't see anywhere else. That's it from me and from all of us here at The Rebel. You keep fighting for freedom. Good night.